Okay, so now we're going to take a look at literary devices. And these are used in a variety of genres: poetry, fiction, speech writing, prose. Um, and you probably are familiar with some of them, or maybe all, but we're just going to go over them to make sure that we're on the same page. Um, Authors use the literary devices to have a larger effect on the reader, and you probably want to incorporate these devices into your own writing to spice it up. Okay, so we're going to take a look at these. I'm sure you've heard of simile. Everybody says simile is a comparison using like or as, right? So, yes, simile takes two things that are not similar and they compare it using like or as. Simile, like a writhing snake, the broken electrical wires hissed and twitched in the damp grass. So, comparing snakes and electrical wires. And the whole idea for, figurative language is to have the reader envision what you are getting at, your point. Metaphor is, again, on the simplistic level, a comparison. It's not as blatantly explicit as a simile. And of course, there is no use of like or as. So, metaphorically speaking, the cat's eyes were jewels gleaming out of the darkness. So, we're just making a metaphor of the cat's eyes. It's not a particularly good one, but there you go. And if it was a simile, it's the cat's eyes were like jewels, right? Hyperbole. Well, this is when you exaggerate for an effect. So I've told you once, I've told you 1,000 times to clean your room, right? That's hyperbole. I probably did not say it 1,000 times, but who knows? Maybe closely I did. So this is just for an effect. It's not like I'm trying to be a liar or anything else like that. I'm just trying to make a point. The next one is pun, and pun is usually one of those jokes where it causes people to groan, right? There was the doctor who liked to needle his patients just to make a point. Ba-dum-bum, right? It's just, you can't get cornier than a pun. Shakespeare used puns a lot. And I submit to you that that's Shakespeare and he can get away with it. You use puns only if you are trying to, you have to be self aware when you use puns. So, you're making a play on words, and the words, may be a clever play on words, but nevertheless, it's kind of, again, corny. So, you always use puns with a kind of tongue in cheek, kind of awareness. Like, I am aware that I am making a corny joke, and it's in that flavor. Another one that I actually don't have listed here is double entendre, and you might have heard of that. And that again is a play on words, and it usually involves sexual connotations. So, I don't have an example off the top of my head, but you're making a play on words where you mean one thing, but you could take it in a sexual way. Let me see. Like I don't know, you're doing something and somebody stop playing with yourself. Like you can make it into a sexual thing instead of, what the person was doing, which was not sexual. Anyway, that's double entendre. That's an aside. Another area is paradox. Paradox is again used for effect. It cannot logically make any sense. It's contradictory. The child is father to the man. And so that's a paradox because a child obviously cannot be the father to a man. But you can interpret it in several ways, like the man had a child and then, he actually became a man. The child helped him become a man and grow up. So that would be like using a paradox in a figurative way. Allusion is another good thing to pay attention to. You make an allusion to a historical reference, or maybe a work of art or fiction. And this is where, as you become more educated, that you have more of a toolbox, you have a foundation of knowledge, where when somebody makes an allusion, you don't just sit there and go, huh? You're like, you have no idea what the person is saying. You get what the allusion is because you've studied it, you've read it, you've heard about it. And that, I submit to you, is the difference between somebody who is uneducated and somebody who is educated. Not to say anything to do with smarts, but just somebody who's educated has a strong foundation and they can understand allusions. So this allusion, casual and confident, the West High football team started the game that was to prove their Alamo. Well, if you know what the Alamo is and what happened at the Alamo, then you'll know what happened to that football team. And here is some more. Onomatopoeia, one of the most ridiculous words ever in the English language, in my opinion. Onomatopoeia, certainly you have heard of that. That is when words sound like what they actually mean. Crackling and hissing and hooting and buzzing and, all of those kind of quacking. Words that sound like they mean. And it has a ridiculous word to define it. Onomatopoeia. Personification. Again, a device where you're giving human qualities to some inanimate object. And that is for whatever purpose you're trying to, illuminate. Another slightly subtext to that is anthropomorphic. I don't have it there. But anthropomorphic is, in particular, is ascribing human qualities to animals. The dog's laughing, the cat peed on your couch because she's mad at you, okay? Something like that. That's anthropomorphic. We have internal rhyme. You want to notice the rhyme structure of things. Internal rhyme is the line itself has rhyme. So too bright for our infirm delight. Certainly you can see bright and delight rhyme. Let's move on. Assonance is the repetition of vowel sounds. And these are more particularly in poetry, but sometimes you'll see them in speeches. We real cool, we left school. Again, that's internal rhyme, but it's also assonance because of the vowel sound that is repeating, the ooh sound. Consonance is the opposite of assonance. It is the repetition of consonant sounds as a prelude to my lay from a poet to a poem. And so you certainly hear the P sound a lot. Just to make things more complicated, it's also kind of alliterative. And alliteration is the repetition of the initial consonant sound in neighboring words, again for effect. See the flying French depart, like the bees of Bonaparte, swarming up with the most venomous vitality. Where's the alliteration? Bees, Bonaparte, venomous vitality. Also another allusion to Napoleon. And then finally, the last two that I'm going to look at in this mini lecture, but let me use hyperbole, there are 5 million other literary devices out there. I'm just using some of the more common ones. Foreshadowing is when we are given hints as to what is going to come. And, for me, that always makes literature and reading a little bit more fun. It's like if you can play a little game with the author, like what does that mean? Maybe that means something bad is going to happen or good is going to happen. Who knows? So it's just like a little Easter egg that a author puts in their writing instead of on a DVD. Okay, foreshadowing. And repetition, again, this is something that is used a lot in poetry and a lot in speeches, because when you're just listening to something, you need to have like repetition to have the idea hammered home to you. When you just have this auditory connection to the words that are being given. So speechwriters recognize this, and you'll see repetition quite a bit in speeches. And here you can see that this is, from this poem, is for some kind of mood effect. I have seen it over and over, the same sea, the same slightly indifferently swinging above the stones, icily free above the stones, and then the world. Very cool, right? You also see alliteration, you see internal rhyme, all of that kind of stuff, and you see this repetition that's happening to give you some kind of an impression, an image of the sea that is an unyielding sea that just keeps coming. So anyway, just a brief look at some of the literary devices, and as you are reading, pay attention to some of these things that the author or the authors might be incorporating in their writing, and think about using it in your own.